Welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy evening. You're in your evening and I'm over here in the morning, and you're joining me this morning from the other side of the world to talk to me about intermittent fasting. So thank you so much for coming on so late in your evening. How have you been?
Be well, and thank you for inviting me back, Michelle. Much appreciated, and really proud of the fact of how far you've come with this podcast and everything else you do. And certainly is fast and fabulous, and I love it. And yeah, highly recommend it to people.
Thank you so much. I appreciate those words. And I mean, to be honest, you were a lot of my inspiration to just get out of my own way and face my fears and do this damn thing, you know? So 2 years going in, and I'm really happy to have you back. Graeme was episode 9 2 years ago, and he's been up to a lot since then. So let's talk about that. You have a very popular book, The Fasting Highway, with the companion podcast, The Fasting Highway. So let's talk about how the success of your book and your podcast has changed your journey over the past 2 years since we spoke last.
Yeah, I guess I'll just give a quick recap for the listeners out there that may not know of me or my story. Basically, I started intermittent fasting coming up nearly 7 years ago now, and I was a former sugar and fast food addict, and I sort of got that out of my life. Then I was looking for something that was able to be sustainable for my health journey. And I found intermittent fasting purely by chance, stumbled onto it. And then I went on to lose 132 pounds or 60 kilos. And I've maintained that now for over 4.5 years. And just recently, a couple of milestones, 6 years since I've been through a fast food drive-through, which is a huge thing for me when, I look back and I was in them 3 times a day. They had a hold on me like you wouldn't believe. I was addicted, hook, line, and sinker, heavily addicted to sugar, which I've been able to get out of my life and stay out of my life mostly for all this time. So yeah, really proud of the way that's handled, gone well. As far as the book and podcast goes, yeah, I started the podcast, and well, the book came out in November 2020 now. So we're getting into 2024. So some time ago, and yeah, it's done well, and really appreciate everybody that's read it and all the great feedback. And I think when we actually read about a personal story and we can relate to it of a person that's actually been there and done it. I didn't put a lot of science in my book on purpose because I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm purely a person that went on a journey and had a hell of a battle with sugar and fast food, which I talk about in the book, and how I found intermittent fasting and how I've been able to make that a sustainable lifestyle and maintain the weight loss, which for me has been the most freeing thing of all. And there's been so many NSVs and freeing moments over the last 7 years. It's not funny. So, yeah, it's been a journey, and a podcast obviously came about following up on the book, all of the same name, The Fasting Highway. Just recorded my 230th episode, actually. So, yeah, that's a fair few. When I first did it, I thought I was going to record like 5 or 6 episodes, see how it goes. I didn't know whether anybody was going to listen to it. You know
Right.
how you get the
Yeah.
stats from Spotify and you look at
Uh-huh.
all the countries where people listen to it?
Sure.
Well, my podcast is now heard in over 100 countries, which really blows my mind. And you think of all these people in some of the countries I had to actually Google because I had no idea where they even were. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it blows you away the reach of the podcast, same as yours. And, you can get a lot of followers listening to it, and people listen to the stories each week. And plus, I've got to thank the guests too, because you know yourself, Michelle, it takes a lot of guts to come onto a podcast and share your story. It's quite a vulnerable thing, and it can be very confronting. So, yeah, I'm really thankful for the opportunities that I've had.
Absolutely. It's such a vulnerable position to be put in, and everybody who comes on and shares their story with the world, it really does push us one step closer to making intermittent fasting something that people turn to instead of such extreme things. We can go into that later or not, but it is such a freedom. It is such a freedom, like you said, and just helping people get to that other side is what we're about. And so honestly, you've been in maintenance now for a very long time. Like, how long? Like 7 years, something like that now?
No, about 4.5 years, five
Okay,
years now.
okay. And
It
now
took me
my math
about a
is
year and a half to get the weight off, and then I've been maintaining now. Yeah, coming
okay.
up be 5 years this year.
Okay, okay, gotcha. So you're like you're really into it. You're deep in. And so like people who are just starting out, they always want to know, well, what do you do, Graham? What is your protocol? How did you get all the weight off? And I hear this same question a lot. What is your protocol? Everybody wants to know they want to know exactly what to do, but the reality is, and we know that everybody's very different. So for you in your journey from long ago when you first started and you were in weight loss, mode, and now you've been in maintenance for some time, has your protocol changed at all?
Yeah, it has a bit. When I first came to intermittent fasting, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And, when I first heard of it on a very warm day here, I was working on the property and I came to take a break and I was lying in the hammock scrolling on my phone. And I saw this thing called intermittent fasting and 1 meal a day lifestyle. And I sort of thought, what sort of idiots do that? That's crazy. That's only nutcases would do that. That was my reaction at the time. I thought nobody does that. I mean, here was this guy who was heavily addicted to sugar, fast food, that was eating from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to bed. And then he was getting out in the middle of the night sometimes to continue that eating and then go back to bed again. So the thought of eating once a day was kind of crazy to me at the time. But when I really started reading more about it and I delved into it a bit and I looked at a bit of the science, it started making sense. And what I
Mm,
really love about intermittent fasting, Michelle, and you probably do too, that it's simple because you have this protocol, and I'm a 1 meal a day guy, and I'll go into that in a sec. But for me, it just seems so simple that I worked till 5 o'clock during the week. I got home, I got out of the car, I had a meal. I was always looking for a healthier meal because I'd broken that addiction of sugar and fast food. So quality food was important to me. And I was doing 23 and 1 at that stage. And I did that right through my weight loss phase. I wasn't budging for anyone. I was single minded, single focused. I
mm,
just wanted to get the weight off my body. I hit a bit of a stall after about 100 pounds just inside a year. And I thought, wow, okay, well, I'm not going to change anything because it's been working. And for me, I really did trust in the process. I know that's bandied around a lot, but for me, that really did work. I just kept working away and just kept doing what I was doing. And then I shifted that other 32 pounds where I sort of got to that point where I felt my body was saying to me, that's enough, Graham. You're here. You're okay. And I sort of felt like I was fighting against it. So I sort of
mm.
realized that I'd reached that set point, right?
Sure, sure.
And then I guess going into maintenance, my biggest fear was, okay, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to keep the weight off? So I had to find something that was a little bit more flexible because I didn't want to do 23 and 1 7 days a week once
Yeah.
I got the weight off. I
Hmm.
wanted some more flexibility. I wanted to be able to have a brunch with my wife on the weekends. So what I did was I moved to 22 and 2 during the week, Monday to Friday,
Hmm.
just extended out an extra hour in my eating window.
Okay.
And on the weekends, I did 16 and 8, 2 meals a day. So what I was basically doing there was I'd go down and I'd have a brunch with my wife, which is what I still do now.
Hmm.
And then I might have a light snack in the evening or something if I was
Mm.
hungry. It wasn't really ever two big meals. It was more one brunch and then
Right.
something later in the day. And then during the week, that 22 and 2, but it was still rolling pretty much what I was doing when I was losing the weight because
Sure.
it wasn't taking me 2 hours to get all the nutrients that I needed for my body to get in. But for me, the most important thing was honoring the fast, complementing that fast by having a healthy eating window. And as the years have rolled by, that's become more and more apparent to me just how important nutrition is.
Let's talk about that because that really does bring me to the next kind of thing I really wanted to discuss is what we're eating in our windows because a lot of people come to this lifestyle with this mindset that well I can eat whatever I want in my window. I mean, I did years ago. I came in and I said, well, I could have my wine, I could eat what I want in my window. Seems simple enough. And while that is an attractive quality to this lifestyle, it's not necessarily true because you could start out that way, like I did, and eat how you were eating before, which for me was a ton of processed foods. And I tried to not eat as many, but I was still eating pretty much the same. So let's talk about how that kind of evolves over time once you start this lifestyle. And so can you eat whatever you want when somebody asks you that? Like say one of somebody in your group or anyone rather, just interested in this lifestyle. Graham, can I eat whatever I want in my window? What is your response to that initially?
Well, my response to that is, Michelle, eating whatever I wanted got me to a 350-pound guy. It's a simple answer. It really did, because I was out of control and my mind was in control. So my mind was telling me what to eat. My mind was telling me, Graham, go on that drive-through 3 or 4 times a day. My mind was telling me, Graham, eat as much sugar as you can. My mind was telling me to be a binge eater, a closet eater, hiding things from my family, eating in my car, sitting there crying while I was eating because it was had such control over me every single day. Stuff stuffed under my seats. My kids would clean my car out and they'd lay out all the fast food bags and all these sorts of things that were in my car. They used to call my car the pizza because there was crumbs everywhere. It was just a lot of evidence of me closet eating. I was hiding it from my family. I was doing things like eating a whole lot of bread, and then I'd go down the shop and I'd buy another loaf of bread to hide it, that I hadn't been doing that sort of behavior. And
Yeah.
so that's eating what my mind wanted, right? So when I got into intermittent fasting, I'd already broken free from that sugar and fast food addiction by going cold turkey on both. And I mean, just stopping it point blank. And it
Yeah.
was pretty brutal. It was hard. And I went through a hell of a withdrawal, probably 2, 3 weeks, absolute nightmare, even to the point of being in bed for a couple of days with the bedspread over my head, voices in my head, all that sort of thing. The typical sort of thing you'd see on a movie, like a drug addict breaking free from
Isn't
heroin
that
or something.
something, right? Like it, and
Yeah.
this is something that is totally legal and we go and we get every day and it, not we, but society. And here we are and it's like coming off a drug. And
Yeah. Well, yeah,
has such an incredible hold on your body and your mind.
it did. But I have to say, too, that not everybody obviously has that addiction that I had.
Sure.
I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, when it comes to addiction, I was off that scale. I was way past 10. I
Understood.
was
Yeah.
probably in the top 10% of addicts in the world. I was very heavily addicted to processed foods and sugar. But for me, getting them out of my life and able to break free from going through that withdrawal, and it was a 3 or 4 week period, and I started to feel better. And that's when I thought, right, well, I've got to do something like when I found intermittent fasting and just thought, right, I'm going to give this a go now. Had I gone into intermittent fasting with being not a drug addict, a sugar addict and a fast food addict,
Yeah.
I still would have been plus 300 pounds. I have no doubt about that,
Yeah.
because I would have crashed and burned, because the fast food and the sugar would have been gnawing away at me all the time. And I might have been able to fast, but when it came to the eating window, I would have gone to pieces because that addiction was still strong in me. So what I really urge people to do, and when I coach and mentor people, is the first thing I'll say to them, tell me about food issues that you have. Well, I'm a closet eater, I'm a binge eater, I'm a sugar addict, I'm a processed food addict, I'm eating bags of chips, when no one's looking, I'm binge eating, I'm closet eating, all those classic signs, right? So
Mm.
for me, that's got to be dealt with as a side issue.
Mm.
Intermittent fasting will not cure addiction to food and sugar. What it will do is it will give you a narrower time to do it. But you can fast all day for 16 or 18 hours. But then if you're having a 5 or 6 hour eating window and you're going on this huge binge, closet eating, sugar addiction, fast food addiction, processed food addictions, you're going to struggle to lose the weight that you want to lose, right? Because it's
Absolutely.
not possible. So what I like to say, Michelle, now, and what I've learned is I eat what makes me feel my greatest, not what my mind wants. And I've stuck to that mantra, and it's really worked for me, because every time I sort of think about, eating foods that I know got me into the place where I was, I just have to revert back to the pain of that, the pain of obesity, the breaking of the chairs in restaurants, not fitting in on an aircraft, not being able to go on amusement rides, all because I was obese and carrying so much weight. So when you think you're going to slip off the side of the road, or whatever they like to say they do, then you've got to dig in. You've got to dig into those whys, exactly why you're doing it. So for me, if I'm going to fast 22 hours or 16 hours, I'm going to make sure that that eating window is going to be pretty special and it's going to be pretty good.
Oh gosh, that is so true because when you fast for however many hours you decide is your protocol, and then you open your window, filling it with processed foods is going to, it might taste good going down, but it's going to make you feel like junk later. And I think when you go back to your why, that is such a great, tool to use as to keep your mind on the straight and narrow as to what is nourishing your body, keeping your body fueled after fasting so long. We want to eat window worthy food that's going to nourish our bodies. And while that doesn't sound so attractive at first, the more you get into your intermittent fasting journey, and I think you can probably attest to this, Graeme, is that you're going to want and gravitate towards those healthier foods that are going to make you feel good and nourish your body the best. I always say, like, if it makes you feel like crap, then why are you eating it? And I have to tell myself that sometimes, even to this day. It's like, wait, that's not a treat. That's not making me feel good. Why am I eating it? Oh, wait. Okay. Then it's that mind shift set. So let's talk about really quick how to keep this lifestyle sustainable, because we see a lot of people come here for weight loss. And then I was just talking about this with Jen the other day, and then we see them have some success and then kind of slip off, and then we might see them a year later come back on and then slip off again, and then a year later it happens, right? It happens a lot. Uh, and the number one reason I hear is, well, life happened, or, I lost my job or whatever. I get it. There's a lot of things that can happen in life. Life is a roller coaster. We go through bumps in the road. And so, because intermittent fasting is so simple, because it's so flexible, how can we navigate the bumps in the road that we have, that we're going to have it in life? We're going to have ups and downs. How do we navigate it when we have stressful situations? What do you like to, what is your best advice on that?
Well, we're always going to have stressful situations, right? Whether
Absolutely.
it's through work, whether it's through relationships, it might be with our kids, it might be somebody in our family gets extremely ill. We could lose people, we could be grieving. There's so many variables that can happen in life. And I think that's why you have to view this as a lifestyle and not a diet, as we say. And when you're living a lifestyle, you learn to cope with various things that come along in that lifestyle. So it's important, those whys is the number one thing I would say, is when times are tough. And that's why I say to people, whenever you first start or even after you start, it doesn't matter what phase you're on, continually revisiting the whys is the most powerful tool you will have to stay the course and make it sustainable. And like I was just saying before, for me, it's about digging back into the pain of the past. So when I think that I might be doing something that's not going to be beneficial to me, right, I dig back into that pain of the past and say, you know what, Graeme, life was pretty crappy when you was 350 pounds. It was a drag just getting through the day. We've just gone through an extreme heat wave here, 115 degrees Fahrenheit for several days in the last few weeks. And it's been good, easy for me to handle that. Now, when I was an obese guy and the summers here in Australia get very hot,
Yeah.
I really struggled. I struggled a lot. And the other thing was, because of my size, I wouldn't go to the beach and take my shirt off. I wouldn't go down the swimming pool and take my shirt off. I
Mm.
wasn't participating in life. And now I can do that freely and I don't care. I just go about my business. I feel normal. I feel okay about it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, that when you get the weight off your body, you don't have those hang-ups, right? You're able to
Absolutely.
just go and do your stuff that you want to do. And I think that's the most freeing part. But the whys are so important, Michelle. Like when you sit down and you write down a list of all the whys. Why am I doing this? What is it that I hope to get out of this? Where am I going to be in 5 years' time? And then on the other side of that list, if you write down, Where am I going to be if I don't do anything about my weight? Where am I going to be in my health if I don't do anything? How is my mobility going to be in my 60s, my 70s, my 80s? If this weight is going to crush me, my mobility, I'm going to end up on a mobility scooter. I'm going to end up on a walking frame. I'm going to end up with things like oxygen tanks, and I'm going to end up riddled with diseases that come through being overweight and obese, right? And so when you add up all the whys, it's a very powerful tool to stay the course. And that's what I say to people. Just take stock. If you have a bad day or a couple of bad days, that's okay. Give yourself grace. What we're doing is we're seeking progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection. And so I always say to people, put it in the forgettery and just move forward.
Absolutely. I mean, I think people get really hung up on, you know, the whoopses in life and, oh, I messed up my fast, or, oh, I'm no good at this or something like that, or they have a bad day and they just give up or think that they messed it up. And really, you didn't mess anything up. This is the simplest lifestyle ever. Just fast on, move forward. Tomorrow's a new day. And when you keep your why in your heart and in your mind, in the back of your head every single day, like you said, you aren't going to get to that place where you're going to want to munch on all those processed foods again and get into that spiral of the where you were, because you remember how you felt and how things were back then and how much better they are now for you. And so that right there is just, it's everything. It's everything. And I always tell everyone who's going through the struggles in the weight loss mode of this lifestyle that, because it's not easy until you kind of like flip that switch and then it becomes easy. But when you're still in that kind of struggling kind of adjustment period in the beginning, because it's a huge adjustment. And I say, please, please just make it to the other side, because what's on this other side is absolute freedom. It's
Mm.
100% freedom. And if you can remember how you were feeling before the freedom and why you came into this to find the freedom, then you will never want to go back to that place again. And it's so powerful. It's so, so powerful to have that mind shift. So I'm glad we brought that up, because mindset in this lifestyle, I say it all the time, it is everything. It's 100% everything. So I wanted to dive in a little about the why we're here, why we're talking about all this is really the root cause of um, the obesity epidemic. What is causing this world to become so sick and so overweight? Um, I recently had the opportunity to visit a functional medicine doctor after like years. I wanted to go for so long, and I finally got the opportunity to go. And so I'm really into finding root causes and talking about those types of things, because I think that we're really like a society that puts band-aids on stuff and treats symptoms. So you're going to find a lot of that in the weight loss industry. Like, I'm just going to throw out a couple of trends that are going on right now, like, semi-glutide injections that are meant for, diabetic patients to lose weight rapidly. There's other trends out there. Of course, there's always trends that are weight loss trends. However, we're not focusing on the root cause of why, as a society, we just keep getting heavier. So let's talk about that for a moment. What do you think? Do you think it's like processed foods? Do you think it's um the constant change in how our soil is being, produced, and how we're growing our food? Like, where do you stand on that, Graeme?
Well, it's pretty simple, Michelle. If you go back to the 70s and have a look at photos of a whole lot of people at the beach, right? You'll be battling to find a person that's either heavily overweight or obese. Roll the clock forward to now, get a picture of the same beach, and you'll probably see 6 out of 10 people either overweight or obese. Now, every time we go to a shopping center or we go out in our streets, we see it on our streets. Now, why is that? The correlation is the availability of food compared to what it was back then. I mean, now there's a fast food store on every single corner. You can dial up food from your TV remote now. Not even have to leave your couch. You push a couple of buttons on your TV remote, and there's some guy standing at your door with a pizza or a burger, right? It's that easy to get food now. The availability is there. So there's no shortage. But also now, I guess everybody wants quick. Everybody's looking, their busy lives, they're looking to get a quick result. So it's easier to go to the drive-through sometimes for people rather than sit down and prepare a meal, which really takes the same amount of time. I mean, you can provide a nutritious meal in 10 minutes, less than the time it takes you to drive down to the drive-through and back to your house again, right? Or wait for the Uber Eats person to come or whoever delivers your food. So in answer to your question, yeah, I think it's the availability of food, and it's just everywhere, every
Yeah.
street corner. If you live in a city, there's no shortage of food, right? Like when I was brought up in New Zealand, I never saw a pizza store until I was 23 years old, until I came to Australia. I'd never
Wow.
seen a pizza store in my life. I was blown away that they had these things that you could go in and get these things called pizzas, right? I'd hardly ever been in a drive-through till then because we didn't have them. They weren't available in the country town that I lived in. You'd see them occasionally when you go to the city,
Yeah.
and the main thing was KFC, McDonald's, and that was about it. But now there's a range of so many fast food places that it's everywhere. It's in your face.
Mhm.
And when you're traveling, every service station you go into will have cakes, pies, chips, all that sort of thing, the service industry. So it's everywhere. And I remember traveling as a kid. You basically went to a service station for petrol and that gasoline, as you call it there. And that was about it. There wasn't
Yeah.
all the extras that you
Right.
could come out with, right? All the sugary drinks and all of that. And I think,
Absolutely.
and the other thing is, the real culprit, I believe, is sugar. And, I've had a problem with sugar. And I can talk about this with all my heart. I have no doubt whatsoever that sugar was the root cause of my obesity and the amount of it that I was having. I'll give you an example of how even in a healthy place like a hospital, how sugar has taken a hold. I was in a public hospital, right? And I'm waiting there, and they come around and they say, "Oh, here's some breakfast, Mr. Curry." And I had a look at it. By that stage, I could mentally calculate really quickly the amount of sugar that was in food and beverages. And I calculated there was 35 teaspoons of sugar on this tray of food that they gave me. Now, when you think about that, I'm in a hospital 3 times a day. That's 115 teaspoons of sugar. The World Health Organization is telling us that we should only have 6 a day. 6. They're giving me 115, and this is in a hospital from a nutritionist that's giving us all this stuff. What chance do we have? And then you go down to the hospital cafeteria, and it's all sugar and processed foods again, right? And this is the trouble we have, Michelle. It's just everywhere on the streets. But I really believe sugar has been a huge problem. I mean, you only have to look at children's dental. We got kids that are 6 years old, and their mouth is rotted out, just simply from drinking sugary drinks, Mountain Dew mouth, they call it, all that sort of thing. So, yeah, for me, it's sugar, the amount of food available, and the increase in fast food chains right across the world. And you could see that.
I completely agree with all of that. It's crazy that, I didn't know that about New Zealand, that you were saying that you hadn't seen a pizzeria until you moved to Australia. Is that what you were saying? That's
Yeah, that's correct.
crazy. I mean, just
I
I mean,
lived in a I lived in a small country town. I mean, I knew
yeah,
what pizza was, but we
sure.
didn't have it. So we didn't. All we had was like a burger bar. You'd come out of the pub, and they'd have this late night burger bar where you could go and get a burger and some hot chips,
Yeah.
and that's about it, right? But now there was, if you go down into a city at night now, there's probably about 30 different places where you can go and get fast food. So it's on every corner, and that was the
Yeah.
trouble when I was addicted to it. It was almost like my car was taking control of me and driving into these places. I'd be saying no, 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 and my car somehow would steer in there, and I'd be in the queue. And once I was in the queue, it was too late. I was ordering off the board, and I'd come out the other side, cursing myself. getting really, down on myself for doing behavior I knew that was damaging my body because I was addicted to it. And the
Mm.
best thing I ever did was getting that stuff out of my life. And the greatest thing I ever did about it was learning what was in that food. And once I learned what was in it, it was horrifying.
Yeah, I recently told my kids are normal kids that like, McDonald's, Happy Meals, and all that kind of crud. And I don't really give in too much, but I do once in a while because, I'm a busy mom. But at the same time, I decided to have a little chat and tell them some of the ingredients in their little favorite meals. And we were absolutely disgusted. And this is a almost 7 and a 9-year old. And now they're like, oh, we don't want to go there anymore, like, so I'm trying to plant the seeds. I'm trying not to scare them, but I can, it's just like once you find out what goes in and how they process, how they treat the animals and stuff that they use, it's just, it's a lot. It is a lot. And so I feel like maybe educating yourself a little bit more on how the fast food culture has come to be and why it's so addictive. They do it on purpose. They put certain ingredients in there to make you want more. And it goes the same for like chips and snacky foods like that. Um, Cookies, all those sugary kind of snacky foods, they are designed purposely to make you want to eat a lot of them. And once you do that, you kind of go down a spiral. And you and I both know that that can like just totally ruin your window if you're fasting, or, it can upset your stomach even. And you can get down that spiral that you don't want to be on. So, yeah, sugar is definitely a big one, and the ingredients that go into all these fast food, uh, junky foods that we're eating, it's just gross. So keeping away from fast food is such a huge thing. It really is. I
Yeah,
think that was a big step. It's a big step when you first start out.
it is. And the other thing is, nothing's stopping you from having a burger or a pizza. You just make them at home. You
Make
can
it at
make a really
home.
great burger. You can go and get some ground beef from your local butcher, high quality. And you're not going and getting a burger with a patty that's made from 100 cows and then all these additives put in it. You're getting grass-fed beef from your local butcher, probably from one cow, and you're making yourself a nutritious meal at home. You can still have a burger. No one's saying you can't. Same as a pizza. You can make your pizza at home if you want. You can make your own bases. You know what's in it. You know what ingredients are in it. And that's the difference. It's the additives that are put in. And as you say, designed to make us want to crave all the other things that are on the menu, right? Because they all
Absolutely.
feed into each other. That's what it's about. And I think marketing is a big thing these days as well. We're bombarded with food advertisements all the time. The other day, I was watching the Super Bowl, and every 5 minutes, they had an advert for a well known fast food store. And I was going, man, people are just sitting here all over the world watching this event, and
An
all they're doing
athletic
is telling
event,
us
right?
to get an athletic event, a healthy event, to
Sure.
go down and get some fast food. And I'm just going, what chance do people have? But I also don't want to demonize this because I was a person that I think a vast majority of my life was ruined by this food, right? In many
Mm.
ways. But I also want to say to people that if you enjoy it and you do it in moderation, well, that's okay. If you something you enjoy, I mean, life's to be lived, right? I'm not here
Sure.
to say to people, do not eat this food. All I can do is pass on my experience, my knowledge I've done, the studies I've done into it. And if somebody asks me a question, why do you think there's an obesity problem? I'll say, take a look around you, go for a drive. You'll soon see why, because of the availability of it and what's in it. And I think the biggest thing I've learnt over this whole journey, Michelle, is finding out what is in our food. I remember standing in a supermarket, spending 2 hours reading nutrition labels. So I was able to get a handle on what was in food. And I was shocked because I was a person that had problems with sugar in that. I picked up tomato sauce. I never realized tomato sauce had so much sugar in it. And it was something that I ate a lot. I picked up a can of baked beans. I never realized how much sugar baked beans had in it. So once I started learning about what was in food, and then it dawned on me that the food around the outside of the supermarket, the fruit and veg section, the meat section, the dairy section, was way less loaded with sugars in that than what the food was down the aisles that was in a packet. So once I started shopping around the perimeter of the supermarket and staying out of the aisles, that cut my sugar and carb content down by probably 75%.
Oh, I bet. I bet. That is such a great tip, is to stay on the perimeter. I've heard that so many times, to stay on the perimeter of the grocery store for the best, ingredients, and changing those ingredients in your everyday life, and just buying better quality and less of the processed stuff in the middle in the packages, like you said, will keep you on the straight and narrow and keep you eating whole, good, sustainable foods that are going to keep your body going and make your fast well worth it. And trust me when I tell you, the next day, your fast is going to be so much easier if you fill your body the day before with wonderful, high quality foods instead of low quality food. But there is a certain balance to this lifestyle. So if you decide that you are somebody who can handle in moderation, then, I do that sometimes. There is one place that I know that they change the oils, the oil in the fryer. And once in a great while, I really do like to go get a grilled chicken sandwich with French fries. They have these really good French fries, and I don't do it all the time, but I really, really do enjoy it. But the thing is it doesn't make me feel like crap the next day. If it did, there'd be no way I'd even want it. I wouldn't even want it. It would be like, that's a pass. I'm good. So I think it's just, yeah, taking that out of the equation, and enjoying it in moderation if you can. If you have an addiction to it, then, you know, what kind of personality are you? Are you a rip off the band-aid, or are you a let's, slowly take it away? I know you're a rip off the band-aid guy, and I'm kind of that way too. So it depends on your personality, I think. So honestly, at this point, I'm gonna wrap it up, and I want to ask you, it's always so much fun talking to you. I know we talk a lot, and it's so great to bounce ideas off of you, and you do the same to me. And it's just been such a great journey, coming to this point. And I'm really glad to have you back on the show, for your second episode. What is next for you? What's next for the Fasting Highway?
Yeah, look, just before I go on to that, Michelle, I just want to add one mindset tip that I have for people when it comes to food is I don't hang out with toxic people in my life, right? If people are toxic, I don't want to know them. I don't hang out with them. I don't associate with them. So I relate to food the same way. If I find toxic food in my life, I don't need it in my life. I don't want it in my life. If I don't have toxic people in my life, then why do I want toxic food in my life? And that's the mindset change that I had to have from breaking from those things. And the
Mm,
other thing is, a lot of people have problems letting go of those things. They
mm,
have problems of, they feel like they're deprived, but it's not being deprived. It's common sense. If you're having foods that are not serving you and keeping you back from your health goals, then you need to make a change. Simple as that. In terms of what's next for me, well, maybe I'm thinking about doing a few things down the track, but really just keeping on doing what I'm doing, building a community with the Fasting Highway. I've got another book in the pipeline coming out probably next year, which is going to focus a bit more on the back end of the lifestyle, and because there's not a lot of talk about what happens next, what happens
yeah,
afterward,
that's
what happens in
exciting.
the yeah, like what happens in the mindset of maintenance, and the mindset and transformation, because there's so much to go through once you've transformed. You find this whole new world. And as sometimes it can be challenging, and it's a real mindset shift again. And it can be very challenging. So there's a few things to write about there.
Love
Just
it.
keep on doing what I'm doing with the podcast. But yeah, I'm really enjoying my Patreon community as you are yours. And I think when you have that connection with people and you meet them and that sort of thing, and you build relationships with them, it becomes very empowering. And just to see the change in them, I'm enjoying doing the coaching that I do. There's a lot of things that I see in people that I see in myself from where I was, and I love helping them change. But some people that they find it difficult, and we'll always have people out there that no matter what they do, they just can't get over the line, right? Because something's holding them back in their life. Because I'm here to tell you, you're listening to a guy that was in a hopeless situation, as you read about in my book and heard him in many podcasts talk about. And I was able to turn my life around purely by stopping the behavior. And that's my number one tip. If you're a person that has a food issue, sugar addiction, fast food addiction, closet eating, binge eating, there is no half measures here. It's a case of stopping the behavior. And only you can do that. You can put the brakes on if you really want to. I mean, going into sort of moderating or cutting down and that sort of behavior is not going to help you long term, because what will happen is it's a bit like giving an alcoholic 2 beers instead of 6, or a cocaine addict 3 lines instead of 5 lines.
Sure.
You're still going to be an addict, right? So you
Mm,
have to get to a point where the behavior stops, and then you rewire the way you think about the way you're consuming food and beverages for the greater good. And then once you start seeing the health benefits come through from that and the freedoms that come from it, travel easier, going out is not a problem anymore, not worried about breaking chairs, or as I talked about, there's so many mindset things for obese people that they have to deal with on a daily basis, ridiculed in public, afraid of going out in public, all of these things. And all I can say is my life has been changed for the better, and all because I made a change and my whys were powerful enough to make that change. But thank goodness I found intermittent fasting. That's all I can say.
I say that every day, honestly. I can't even, I don't even know where I'd be right now if I didn't find intermittent fasting. I can't imagine where I'd be at 42, because at 37 I was going into the morbidly obese, area, and I can't imagine having have come your journey so far from being so morbidly obese to being so trim and healthy. It's got to be, gosh, I can't even wrap my mind around it, because I know what it was for me at just 50 pounds. And while that is a lot, but like, you lost 135 pounds. Am I being correct in saying that? Was it more than
Yeah.
that?
And look, it's all relative, Michelle. I mean,
Of
50
course.
pounds on,
But
on your frame is huge. I mean, you're only a slightly built person. And, for me, I'm a 6'5" guy. And,
yeah,
50 pounds off your body is life changing. It's transformed your life, and you can do so many things. And now you're paying it forward with this wonderful podcast and your group and the coaching that you do. And I think you're one of the most inspirational people in this
oh,
community, and people
thank
out there
you.
listening. I thoroughly encourage you to join Michelle's group, look her up as a coach. She's one of the 3 people that I recommend as an
Thank you,
intermittent
Graham.
fasting coach. I think she's wonderful because she has the right mindset, sorry. And she also has walked the walk. And when you've walked the walk, you can talk the talk, because you know what it's like to be in that person's shoes that you're talking to. And that's really important. And if anybody's out there is looking for somebody that's been an intermittent fasting coach, make sure they've walked in your shoes.
Absolutely. Find someone you can relate to. And honestly, I recommend you all the time, especially for people who have a sugar addiction or a sugar problem. I know that you can be the one to help them probably better than me. So I really do appreciate those words. It's been such a journey, and I think you can relate that the journey doesn't end. We're still learning about ourselves, even though we are helping others. We're still learning about our own personal unique journeys. So I mean, I don't know about you, but like every year or so something happens and I'm like, okay, well, now we adjust. Now we move and we adjust, and I'm constantly moving and adjusting, and that's just life. But the great thing about intermittent fasting is that you get to move and adjust with your intermittent fasting lifestyle through life. And it's just such a cool journey. It is such a cool
Mm.
journey. And I'm super excited for what's coming next with your new book. I can't wait for that to come out. That is something that nobody's talked about, the maintenance phase, and what you go through after you reach your goal and how things change after that. it's just something that really does need to be talked about. I really love this, Graeme. I'm super excited for your new book. And last but not least, I always want to ask if you could talk to somebody who may be contemplating this way of life and they're just unsure, maybe they're skeptical. What are three pieces of advice that you'd give to that person to give them that push that they need?
Well, firstly, just start. Secondly, keep it simple. When you keep things simple, things stay simple. It's when you complicate things, that's when you get into trouble, right? So fasting itself is a pretty simple thing, Michelle. Okay. So we fast in a period of time. We're eating in a pattern of time. So if we nail that clean fast that we talk about, and we know why the clean fast is so important, Michelle's talked about it a lot, as I have. And once you've nailed that, you're 70% of the way there. You're not 50%, you're 70%, right? Because you're fasting a lot longer than what you are eating. So when it comes to the eating window, if you can work that out over time, you may be eating all the things when you come, and you may have that, attitude or mindset, well, this is what I'm going to do. But that will change over time, because you'll realize that if you're fasting so long, that you want to complement that by eating the foods that are going to make you feel great, right? And you're going to see some great results, and you're going to see some NSVs coming through. So keep it simple, keep it simple most of all. But lastly, what I would say to people is commit and give it 6 to 12 months. Don't just come and expect results in 2 or 3 weeks. Intermittent fasting is not a silver bullet. It's not something that's going to cure everything. You still have to work at it. You still have to have discipline. You still have to have focus. And so what I say to people is, if you're going to start, give it a commitment. Say to yourself, 6 to 12 months, write down all those whys we talked about, 2 columns. Why am I doing this? And in the other column, what happens if I don't do it? Where am I going to be? And keep revisiting those whys all the time. But most of all, keep it simple. Keep plugged into communities like Michelle for support, like-minded people, and you'll be okay.
I love that. So just start. That's like such it sounds so simple, but like it really is just so powerful. Just start. There's no good time. Don't wait until like your birthday weekend's over or like you come back from vacation. Just start. There's no good time. Everything, this is life. There's crap coming all the time. Just start. Keep it simple. So important. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. This is not rocket science. I know that that's such a cliche, but it is. It's such a simple thing. Don't overcomplicate it. Nailing the clean fast, you're halfway there. Halfway there. And committing yourself, not expecting quick, crazy, magical results because that is unrealistic. And if you see somebody out there in one of our communities or in somebody else's community that's lost, 20 pounds in a month, great for them. I congratulate them, but don't compare yourself to them. Commit yourself to your own unique journey. And I agree, 6 to 12 months. Give yourself 6 to 12 months. Don't expect a miracle to happen in a month. Did your weight come on in a month? I suspect not. I don't even suspect it came on in 12 months. So I think that people need to shift their mindset and say, I owe it to myself to give myself that time, to allow my body to heal, to allow my body to release this weight in a way that's going to last forever. And so I love all those pieces of advice, Graeme. Thank you so much again for coming on, and enjoy your evening. I know it's probably getting close to your time for you to turn in. I don't know if you're a night owl or not. I'm definitely not, but I wish you a wonderful evening.
Oh, thanks so much, Michelle. Thoroughly enjoyed talking to you as always. As I said, I find you a hugely inspirational person. And yeah, I just wanted to say, everybody out there, no matter how high the mountain is, you can climb it. And there's lots of support out there through people like Michelle coming into our communities, and you'll find that support. Meet like-minded people and just put one foot in front of the other. No 2 days are the same, but as I said, we're seeking progress, but not perfection. And intermittent fasting for me is all about vigilance without obsession. And it's a very good night to you too, Michelle.
All right, Graham. Well, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon, friend.